Hello brothers and welcome to Sigma Grandpa channel. The strongest mind is not the one that conquers the world. It is the one that refuses to be conquered by itself. What if I told you that one of history's oldest philosophies and one of today's most misunderstood personality archetypes are secretly playing the same psychological game? At first glance, Sigma males and Stoicism seem like completely different worlds. One is often portrayed as the mysterious outsider who walks alone. The other is an ancient philosophy practiced by Roman emperors and legendary thinkers over 2,000 years ago. But look beneath the surface, and something fascinating begins to emerge. Here's a surprising fact. Psychologists have found that people with higher levels of emotional regulation consistently make better long-term decisions than those who simply react to whatever they're feeling. That's exactly where Stoicism begins. And it's also one of the least understood traits often associated with the Sigma mindset. This isn't about being cold or emotionless. It's about refusing to let emotions become your boss. The funny part, society often mistakes quiet people for having nothing going on upstairs. Meanwhile, some of the loudest people in the room are arguing with strangers online because someone used the wrong emoji. Silence has been underestimated for a very long time. In this video, we're going far beyond the usual clichés about being a lone wolf or not caring what people think. We're uncovering the deeper psychological similarities that most people never notice, the invisible mental habits that shape decisions, relationships, resilience, and inner freedom. Some of these insights may completely change the way you think about both Sigma males and Stoicism. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you might discover that the greatest battle either of them ever fought was never against other people. It was against the mind itself. Number one, they secretly treat every social interaction as a thinking experiment. One of the most overlooked similarities between the Sigma mindset and Stoicism is that they don't enter conversations just to participate. They enter them to understand. While many people are busy trying to impress, fit in, or win approval, they are quietly paying attention to what most people never notice. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to learn something about human nature. They notice who changes their opinions, depending on who is in the room. They see who talks with confidence but avoids responsibility. They pay attention to who listens only long enough to prepare their next response, instead of actually hearing what someone is saying. These small details tell a much bigger story than polished words ever could. Stoicism teaches that people reveal themselves through their actions, not through the image they try to create. The Sigma mindset naturally leans in the same direction. Instead of accepting first impressions, they let people reveal themselves over time. They understand that consistency is much harder to fake than charm. This doesn't mean they walk around judging everyone or assuming the worst. In fact, it's the opposite. They stay curious. They know people are complex, and they avoid making quick conclusions. They watch for patterns because patterns rarely lie. A single mistake can happen to anyone, but repeated behavior usually points to someone's real character. This habit also protects them from manipulation. They are less likely to be fooled by grand promises, emotional speeches, or carefully crafted personalities because they are looking beneath the performance. They are asking quiet questions that never leave their lips. Does this person's behavior match their words? Do they stay the same when nobody important is watching? Over time, this way of observing becomes a powerful advantage. It helps them choose better friends, avoid unnecessary conflict, and invest their trust wisely. While others are reacting to appearances, they are studying reality. And in a world where so many people are focused on being seen, the rare person who truly observes often understands far more than the person making the most noise. Number two, they fear becoming predictable more than becoming lonely. Most people spend their lives trying to become easier to understand. They reveal everything, explain every decision, share every emotion, and follow routines so consistent that others can predict exactly how they'll react. It feels comfortable because being understood often brings acceptance. But there's a hidden cost to becoming completely predictable. You become easier to influence. This is where the Sigma mindset quietly overlaps with Stoicism. Neither is interested in acting mysterious for attention. Instead, they understand that when people can predict your every move, they can also predict your weaknesses. They know which compliment will win you over, which insult will upset you, and which fear will make you compromise your values. That is why they refuse to let other people write the script for their behavior. They don't react simply because someone expects them to. An insult doesn't guarantee anger. Praise doesn't guarantee loyalty. Pressure doesn't guarantee surrender. Their decisions come from principles, not from emotional reflexes. Stoicism teaches that your actions should be guided by reason, not by the expectations of others. The Sigma mindset naturally follows the same path. They would rather spend time alone than become someone who can be controlled by predictable emotional buttons. The interesting part is that this unpredictability isn't chaos. They aren't random or inconsistent. In fact, they are deeply consistent where it matters most. Their values never change. What changes is how they respond to different situations. They adapt without abandoning who they are. This makes them difficult to manipulate because people can't rely on the usual formulas. Guilt doesn't always work. Flattery doesn't always work. Fear doesn't always work. They pause, think, and choose their response instead of handing it over to someone else's expectations. Number 3, they rarely chase closure. One of the hardest lessons for most people to accept is that not every story ends with an explanation. Sometimes people leave without saying goodbye. Friendships fade without a clear reason. Betrayal happens without an apology. Questions remain unanswered for years, and in some cases, forever. Most people can't stand that uncertainty, so they spend months or even decades searching for closure that may never come. The Sigma mindset and Stoicism take a very different approach. They understand that waiting for someone else to explain your pain is giving that person control over your peace of mind. If your healing depends on another person's confession, apology, or honesty, then your future is tied to a decision you cannot control. That realization changes everything. Instead of chasing answers, they focus on accepting reality. They may never know why someone lied, why trust was broken, or why life unfolded the way it did. But they also know that understanding every detail isn't necessary to move forward. Some doors stay closed, and standing outside knocking won't change that. Stoicism teaches that peace comes from accepting what is, not from demanding what should have been. The Sigma mindset quietly lives by the same principle. They don't confuse unanswered questions with unfinished lives. Ironically, the people who desperately seek closure often end up reopening old wounds. Every message, every phone call, every attempt to get one last conversation keeps the past alive. Meanwhile, those who accept uncertainty begin healing much sooner because they stop expecting the past to provide the future with peace. This doesn't mean they stop caring or pretend the hurt never happened. It means they refuse to build their emotional recovery around someone else's willingness to explain themselves. They learn to create their own ending instead of waiting for another person to write it. Sometimes the greatest form of closure isn't finally getting an answer. It's realizing you no longer need one. That quiet decision is often the moment real freedom begins. Number 4, they distrust their own ego more than other people's opinions. Most people spend a great deal of energy worrying about what others think of them. They fear criticism, rejection, and being misunderstood. But one of the deepest similarities between the Sigma mindset and Stoicism is that they are far more concerned about something much closer to home, the voice inside their own head. They know the ego is clever. It doesn't always show up as arrogance or pride. Sometimes it disguises itself as certainty. It whispers that you're always right, that your mistakes are someone else's fault, or that you don't need to change because everyone else is the problem. That kind of thinking feels comforting, but it quietly blocks growth. This is why they constantly question themselves before questioning others. They ask difficult questions that most people avoid. Am I reacting to the truth or just protecting my pride? Am I defending my values, or am I simply refusing to admit I was wrong? Those questions are uncomfortable, but they often lead to greater wisdom than winning an argument ever could. Stoicism teaches that the greatest enemy is not outside of you, but within you. The Sigma mindset reflects the same idea. They understand that an uncontrolled ego can ruin friendships, destroy opportunities, and keep a person trapped in the same destructive patterns for years. Ironically, people with the biggest egos often believe they have the smallest. They mistake stubbornness for strength and confidence for wisdom. They stop learning because they think they already know enough. Those who think like Stoics or Sigmas take the opposite approach. They stay open to correction because they know nobody sees themselves perfectly. They welcome honest feedback, not because it feels good, but because it exposes blind spots they could never discover alone. Number 5, they can sit with psychological discomfort, longer than average people. One of the quietest forms of strength is the ability to stay with discomfort without rushing to escape it. Most people feel uneasy for a few minutes before reaching for something to distract themselves. They scroll through their phones, binge watch another episode, start an argument, or fill every silent moment with noise. The goal isn't always entertainment. Often, it's escape. The Sigma mindset and Stoicism take a different path. They understand that discomfort is not always a warning sign. Sometimes it is a teacher. Instead of running from difficult emotions, they stay long enough to learn why those emotions showed up in the first place. When disappointment hits, they don't immediately look for someone to blame. When loneliness appears, they don't instantly chase company just to avoid being alone with their thoughts. When failure stings, they resist the urge to bury it under excuses. They sit with the feeling, examine it, and allow it to reveal something useful. This patience gives them an advantage that isn't obvious at first. While others make quick decisions simply to stop feeling uncomfortable, they wait until the emotion settles. They know that choices made in panic often create problems that last much longer than the discomfort itself. Stoicism teaches that pain is not always the enemy. Sometimes the real danger is the desperate need to make pain disappear as fast as possible. That need drives people toward unhealthy relationships, reckless decisions, and habits that provide temporary relief but long-term regret. The Sigma mindset quietly reflects this same understanding. They don't enjoy suffering, nor do they seek it out. They simply refuse to let discomfort make decisions on their behalf. They know that some of life's greatest lessons arrive wrapped in frustration, uncertainty, and silence. The people who grow the most are rarely the ones who avoid discomfort. They are the ones who can remain steady while it passes through them, trusting that clarity comes to those who don't abandon themselves the moment life becomes uncomfortable. Number 6, they know attention is more dangerous than criticism. Most people are afraid of criticism. They worry about being judged, rejected, or talked about. But the Sigma mindset and Stoicism recognize a danger that is far more subtle. It isn't criticism that quietly changes people. It is attention. Criticism often forces you to think. It challenges your ideas, exposes weaknesses, and sometimes pushes you to improve. Attention, on the other hand, can slowly convince you that your image is more important than your character. The moment people begin to admire you, there is a temptation to protect that admiration at all costs. That is where many people lose themselves. They stop saying what they truly believe because they don't want to disappoint their audience. They stop taking risks because failure might damage the reputation they worked so hard to build. Without realizing it, they become caretakers of an image instead of builders of a meaningful life. Stoicism warns against becoming attached to praise because praise can be just as controlling as insults. If criticism can make you feel small, constant admiration can make you feel untouchable. Both are dangerous because they hand your peace of mind over to other people's opinions. The Sigma mindset naturally leans away from this trap. They don't reject recognition, but they refuse to depend on it. They understand that the crowd is unpredictable. The same people cheering for you today may criticize you tomorrow, often for the very things they once admired. That is why they stay grounded. They remind themselves that applause is temporary, popularity changes, and public opinion has a short memory. What lasts is integrity. Ironically, the people who are least interested in attention often handle it the best. They don't let compliments inflate their ego, and they don't let criticism destroy their confidence. Their focus remains on becoming better, not becoming more visible. Number 7, they quietly measure people by recovery speed. Most people judge others by their biggest victories. They admire wealth, status, talent, or intelligence, assuming those things reveal strength. But the Sigma mindset and Stoicism often look at something completely different. They pay attention to how quickly a person regains their balance after life knocks them down. Anyone can look confident when everything is going well. It's easy to smile when the job is secure, the relationship is healthy, and life is moving in the right direction. The real test begins when those things disappear. What happens after the disappointment? What happens after the rejection, the mistake, or the loss? Some people stay trapped in yesterday for years. They replay old conversations, hold on to resentment, and allow one painful event to define the rest of their lives. Others grieve, reflect, learn, and slowly begin moving again. They don't pretend nothing happened, but they refuse to let one chapter become the entire story. That difference says more about a person's inner strength than any trophy or title ever could. Stoicism teaches that hardship is unavoidable, but remaining broken by it is not. The Sigma mindset quietly shares this belief. They understand that resilience isn't measured by never falling. It is measured by how well you rebuild without becoming bitter. This doesn't mean rushing the healing process or pretending pain doesn't exist. Real recovery takes honesty. It requires facing uncomfortable truths instead of hiding behind excuses. Some wounds need time, but they also need courage. Healing begins the moment someone decides they will not let suffering become their permanent address. That is why they notice recovery speed. Not because they expect perfection, but because recovery reveals mindset. It shows whether a person grows through adversity or becomes imprisoned by it. Number 8, they refuse to build a personality around their wounds. One of the biggest traps a person can fall into is allowing their pain to become their identity. A betrayal turns into, "I can never trust anyone again." A failed relationship becomes, "Love always ends badly." One painful experience slowly grows into the lens through which they see the entire world. The Sigma mindset and Stoicism quietly reject this way of thinking. They acknowledge the wound, but they refuse to live inside it. They understand that pain is something you experience, not something you become. This is a powerful difference because many people unknowingly organize their entire lives around old scars. Every decision is made to avoid being hurt again. Every new person is treated as if they are guilty of someone else's mistakes. Before long, fear is making every decision while calling itself wisdom. Stoicism teaches that the past can teach you, but it should never imprison you. The Sigma mindset naturally follows the same path. They take the lesson and leave the bitterness behind. They know that carrying yesterday's wounds into every tomorrow only creates new pain. What's fascinating is that truly strong people rarely introduce themselves through what happened to them. They don't constantly remind others of how they were wronged or use past suffering to earn sympathy. Their focus is on who they are becoming, not on what they survived. That doesn't mean they forget. Some experiences leave marks that never completely disappear. But scars are different from open wounds. A scar is proof that healing happened. It reminds you of the battle without forcing you to relive it every day. Number 9, they intentionally leave parts of themselves unexpressed. Modern culture encourages people to share everything. Every opinion, every emotion, every achievement, and every setback is expected to be posted, explained, or announced. Silence is often mistaken for insecurity, and privacy is sometimes treated as if it means someone has something to hide. The Sigma mindset and Stoicism quietly challenge that belief. They understand that not every thought deserves to be spoken, and not every part of your life needs an audience. Some things become more valuable simply because they are protected. This isn't about being secretive or pretending to be mysterious. It is about understanding the difference between expression and exposure. Many people reveal so much about themselves that others can easily predict their fears, desires, and emotional triggers. Without realizing it, they hand over the map to their inner world. Stoicism teaches the discipline of speaking with purpose instead of speaking from impulse. The Sigma mindset naturally reflects this habit. They ask themselves a simple question before sharing something. Does this need to be said, or do I simply feel the urge to say it? That small pause changes everything. They don't announce every goal before they've achieved it. They don't explain every decision to people who have no role in making it. They don't waste energy defending themselves against every misunderstanding. They know that constant explanation often creates more confusion than silence ever could. Ironically, people who reveal less are often understood more accurately over time because their actions begin to speak louder than their words. They let consistency do the talking instead of endless self-description. In a world where attention is treated like currency, choosing privacy is a quiet form of strength. It protects your peace, your focus, and your independence from the opinions of people who don't truly know you. Sometimes the wisest thing you can say is nothing at all, not because you have nothing to offer, but because you've learned that wisdom isn't measured by how much you reveal. It's measured by knowing what deserves to remain yours alone. Number 10, they understand that freedom begins when you stop negotiating with every feeling. One of the greatest misconceptions about happiness is that every feeling deserves to be obeyed. If you feel angry, express it. If you feel afraid, avoid the challenge. If you feel unmotivated, wait until motivation returns. Many people unknowingly allow their emotions to become the managers of their lives, making decisions one mood at a time. The Sigma mindset and Stoicism take a very different approach. They recognize that feelings are real, but they also know that feelings are temporary. Just because an emotion arrives doesn't mean it deserves authority. This simple understanding creates an incredible sense of freedom. When frustration appears, they don't immediately assume something must be wrong. When fear shows up, they don't automatically turn around. When self-doubt whispers that they aren't good enough, they don't treat it as undeniable truth. They listen, but they don't surrender. Stoicism teaches that emotions are visitors, not rulers. They come and go like changing weather, but your principles should remain steady. The Sigma mindset reflects this in everyday life. They don't ask, "What do I feel like doing?" They ask, "What is the right thing to do, regardless of how I feel?" That question separates discipline from impulse. Many of life's biggest regrets begin with a temporary emotion that was given permanent power. A moment of anger destroys a friendship. A moment of fear kills a dream. A moment of insecurity leads to years of settling for less than you deserve. Feelings pass, but the decisions made under their control can remain for a lifetime. This doesn't mean ignoring emotions or pretending they don't exist. It means refusing to let them sit behind the steering wheel. They are valuable signals, but poor leaders. Real freedom isn't the ability to do whatever you feel like doing. Real freedom is keeping your direction, even when your emotions are pulling you somewhere else. That is the quiet strength both Stoicism and the Sigma mindset share, and it is one of the rarest forms of self-mastery a person can develop. Number 11, they don't confuse being understood with being right. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that if enough people agree with them, they must be right. They measure truth by applause, likes, and approval. If everyone nods, they feel confident. If people disagree, they begin questioning themselves. Their confidence rises and falls with the crowd. The Sigma mindset and Stoicism quietly reject this way of thinking. They understand that being understood and being correct are two completely different things. A popular opinion can still be wrong, and an unpopular one can still be true. History proves this over and over again. Entire groups of people have believed ideas that later turned out to be false. At the same time, many important truths were ignored, laughed at, or even attacked before they were finally accepted. The number of people who agree with an idea has never been a reliable test of whether it is true. That is why they don't spend their lives trying to convince everyone. They are far more interested in examining the facts than collecting supporters. If evidence proves they are wrong, they change their minds without seeing it as a personal defeat. Their loyalty is to the truth, not to their ego. Stoicism teaches that wisdom requires humility. The Sigma mindset reflects that same attitude. They don't chase agreement, because agreement can be bought with flattery, emotion, or social pressure. Truth cannot. Ironically, many arguments continue because both sides care more about being understood than discovering what is actually right. They defend positions they secretly doubt, simply because admitting a mistake feels embarrassing. People who think differently don't see changing their minds as weakness. They see it as growth. They would rather lose an argument than spend years defending an illusion. Number 12. They believe the strongest mind is the one that needs the fewest psychological crutches. Every person depends on something to feel okay. For some, it's constant praise. For others, it's being the smartest person in the room, winning every argument, checking notifications every few minutes, or always having someone to reassure them. These things may seem harmless, but over time, they can become psychological crutches. Things the mind believes it cannot function without. The Sigma mindset and Stoicism share a different goal. They aren't trying to eliminate pleasure or isolate themselves from the world. They're trying to reduce unnecessary dependence. The fewer things that control your emotional state, the freer you become. This is why they pay close attention to their own attachments. They ask uncomfortable questions. Can I still be at peace if nobody notices my success? Can I make the right decision even if it disappoints people? Can I enjoy my own company without reaching for constant distraction? These questions expose invisible chains that most people don't even realize they're wearing. Stoicism teaches that anything you cannot live without eventually gains power over you. The Sigma mindset reaches the same conclusion through observation. They see people whose confidence disappears the moment they lose their status, relationship, income, or public approval. It becomes clear that many people don't own these things. These things own them. This doesn't mean refusing success, friendships, or recognition. It means refusing to build your identity on them. You can appreciate them without becoming dependent on them. True mental strength isn't measured by how much pressure you can endure. It's measured by how little the outside world has to cooperate for you to remain steady. When your peace no longer depends on applause, possessions, or other people's opinions, you become incredibly difficult to control. We've uncovered something that most people never stop to consider. The real connection between the Sigma mindset and Stoicism isn't about being quiet, avoiding people, or acting mysterious. It's about developing a mind that cannot be easily pulled apart by emotions, pressure, praise, fear, or the opinions of others. Both remind us that true strength is rarely loud. It shows up in the pause before reacting, the courage to question your own ego, the discipline to let go of answers you'll never receive, and the wisdom to build your life on principles instead of temporary feelings. These aren't just interesting ideas. They're habits that can completely change the way you think, make decisions, and respond to the world around you. The truth is, life will continue to test your patience, challenge your values, and tempt you to take the easier path. The question isn't whether those moments will come. The question is who you'll become when they do. Every challenge is an opportunity to strengthen your character or surrender it. That choice belongs to you alone. If this video gave you a new perspective or made you think differently about Stoicism and the Sigma mindset, don't let it end here. Take one lesson from today's discussion and put it into practice this week. Knowledge becomes powerful only when it changes the way you live. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos that challenge conventional thinking and help you develop a stronger, wiser, and more disciplined mind. If you found one idea especially meaningful, share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear which insight stood out to you the most. Until next time, protect your peace, guard your character, and remember, the greatest victories are often the ones nobody else can see.